Hi, thanks for joining me at Be the Radical Way. I'm Saz Russell, a neurospicy psychonauting skills for change coach, here to help you have more ease, care, and connection in your relationships. I recently talked about attunement, what it is, and how we can better attune to ourselves. And today I want to go a layer deeper and talk about the difference between self versus other validation. Self-validation is a process where we internally acknowledge our own thoughts, emotions, and actions. It involves recognizing and accepting our own experiences without relying on the approval or understanding of others. Other validation is about acknowledgement and acceptance from others, which can be powerful, but seeking it can get tricky, especially if we don't get the validation we're expecting or longing for. And I'm paraphrasing Dr. David Schnark, author of Passionate Marriage, when I say, other validation requires someone to validate and accept all our disclosures. Self-validation involves validating ourselves even when someone else won't. The problem with other validation is that the person who wants recognition or affirmation is requiring someone else who may have a lower desire to validate to control how valid or worthy they feel. Here's Schnark again. Quote, we all want to be validated, but our dependence on it leads to what I call the tyranny of the lowest common denominator and destroys passion, eroticism, and desire in emotionally committed relationships. This is why I said earlier that our capacity for self-soothing and self-validation determine our tolerance and capacity for intimacy, end quote. Too much compromising, negotiating, or pressuring creates situations where we're organizing around each other's anxieties versus our strengths. Now, that doesn't mean we can never ask for reassurance, but it's helpful to know we can first reassure ourselves, waiting to request validation until we know this is a situation where we can't solve it on our own. And a tool that can help us on the path of self-validation is the process of differentiation. David Schnark defines differentiation as follows, quote, differentiation is your ability to maintain your sense of self when you are emotionally and or physically close to others, especially as they become increasingly more important to you. Differentiation permits you to maintain your own course when lovers, friends, and family pressure you to agree and conform, end quote. Practicing differentiation helps us find the balance between wanting togetherness and wanting individuality. And differentiation is a counterspell to merging or fusion. Fusion happens when we're fearful of our differences, and the differences can be small, such as how someone spends their free time or what their likes and dislikes are, or there can be big differences such as conflict style or life design. Do you want kids? How much traveling would you like to do? How much togetherness do you want? Often we fuse with someone in the hopes that as we become more like them, we'll become more liked or loved. But as Schnark states, quote, giving up your individuality to be together is as defeating in the long run as giving up your relationship to maintain your individuality. Either way, you end up being less of a person with less of a relationship, end quote. Building connection with someone is a two-part process of 1, confronting ourselves, and 2, disclosing to our other person. But it's not just self-disclosure. Self-validation requires us to maintain our own sense of identity and self-worth when we're disclosing, with no expectation or of acceptance or reciprocity from our partner. I'll say that again. Self-validation requires us to maintain our own sense of identity and self-worth when we're disclosing, with no expectation of acceptance or reciprocity from our partner. Our capacity for self-validation is directly related to our level of differentiation. We can maintain a clear sense of ourselves when someone we care about is pressuring us for conformity and sameness. Coach James Shore, who discusses Schnark's work on differentiation and self and other validation, describes it this way, quote, other validated intimacy sounds like this. I'll tell you about myself, but only if you then tell me about yourself. If you don't, I won't either. But I want you to, so you have to. I'll go first and you're obligated to disclose. It's only fair. And if I go first, you have to make me feel secure. I need to be able to trust you. End quote. Self-validated intimacy in long-term relationships sounds quite different. And here's Shore again, quote, I don't expect you to agree with me. You weren't put on the face of the earth to validate and reinforce me. But I want you to love me. And you can't really do that if you don't know me. I don't want your rejection, but I must face that possibility if I'm ever to feel accepted or secure with you. It's time to show myself to you and confront my separateness and mortality. One day when we are no longer together on this earth, I want to know that you knew me. End quote. To practice differentiation, you can use the tools I mentioned in my previous video on self-attunement, noticing what you're feeling, labeling it, and asking yourself, what do I need? You can also become aware of when you're feeling energy, such as anxiety, stress, or irritation, that's not yours and is the other person's. And one of the tools that I like for this is imagining that there's a big dial switch in front of you. And if you picture the other person's energy as static that you're feeling in your body, you can turn that dial up or down. And if you turn it up, you can feel their energy a little bit stronger. And if you turn that dial down, their static starts to get quiet in your body. So you can start practicing, is this theirs? Is this mine? Do I want a little bit more of this? Do I want a little bit less of that? So that's one practice that I like to use for differentiation. You may also need to take space, that is, get out of sight and hearing of each other before you can come back to your own baseline and recognize which sensations and emotions are yours. Once you're centered within yourself and full of your own energy instead of someone else's, you can feel into how you'd like to care for your needs without relying on someone else, not relying on their mood, their desire, their capacity. And if you'd like help customizing a practice for how to differentiate, self-validate, and not take on another person's energy, book a one-to-one with me through the link in my bio. The first 20-minute call is free. Take care. So be it. See to it.